We're three best friends, and we love Lost. And we love talking, but even more so, we love talking about Lost. So join us for some laughs, good conversation, and let's get lost together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Let's Get Lost with your Oceanic Three. I'm Amanda, and as usual, I'm joined by my besties, Teresa.
Oh, hey.
And Kip.
Hi.
How's everyone doing after the emotional week like we had last week with the first death?
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't the first death. Let's not shit on Joanna and
Scott or Steve.
Well, I think that's warranted. It was the first meaningful death.
It was no, their deaths were mean. It was the first.
But they weren't.
Build cast.
Yeah.
Death.
All right, fine. You want to be technical.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as usual, we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I just have to bring up one thing. And one thing. Did you guys do your Spotify Wrapped for the year?
Yes, I did.
No, I don't use Spotify.
Really?
Sorry.
Well,
But now I'm like super jealous because I wish I had a Spotify Wrap.
Embarrassed to say that Let's Get Lost was my fifth most listened to podcast.
Are you serious? Oh, I didn't even check that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So anyway, I just thought it was funny that those came out today. So if anyone has Let's Get Lost in their Spotify Wrapped, please tag us in it. I'd be interested to see.
I'm going to check right now.
However, we do have our Let's Get Lost podcast Wrapped from Spotify.
Okay.
So do you want me to read those out?
Yeah.
Okay. So Spotify podcast Wrapped. Let's Get Lost with the Oceanic Three. So by the time they did this, we were 15 episodes into it. Over 1,000 minutes listened to on Spotify.
Wow.
And in 8 countries.
Oh, wow.
Just Spotify alone. That doesn't account for the other ones too. So pretty cool. Thanks everybody for listening on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. But yeah,
You don't regard our podcast as...
to be fair, I think it was just because we started halfway through the year.
I'm literally joking.
I was going to say, I don't know how many people would listen to their own podcast over and over again.
Well, Amanda loves it. She loves it. She's
Amanda loves the sound of her own voice.
She's always like laughing to herself. She's like, I'm so funny.
That is true. It's not that I think I'm funny. It's that when I'm listening to it.
Except when you go, oh my God, I'm so funny.
No, I don't do that. I want to make that very clear to everyone. What I do that is funny to me, though, is I'll be like listening to it and you guys will be talking and then I'll respond as if I'm listening to you talk for the first time. And I say the same thing I did in the podcast. I'm very consistent.
You are. If nothing, you are consistent.
Exactly. So speaking of consistent and talking a lot, what are we talking about today, Teresa?
Today we're talking about episode 21, The Greater Good, written by Leonard Dick and directed by David Grossman. One island crime was solved. The identity of the arsonist who destroyed Michael's raft. Sorry, there's no question mark there. I added that by accident. Mm-hmm. Shannon becomes convinced that Locke is responsible for Boone's death and asks Sayid for a quote-unquote favor. Trekking into the jungle with Locke, Sayid becomes convinced that he is not responsible for the tragedy, but Shannon remains adamant and decides to take matters into her own hands.
Okay, wait a minute. So they felt the need to bring up the raft burning?
I think they done goofed. I think they meant to say who hit Sayid with the thing.
Yeah, because
they barely mentioned. I mean,
I know.
We saw the raft and we talked about it a little bit. Well, Locke talked about it a little bit, but there was no.
And Sayid does say, was it also you that burned the raft?
I know, but in the synopsis, they make it sound like that was solved.
No, I know. But I guess, but it's kind of, no, but I mean, like, that's the only time I'm saying that's the only time they even mentioned
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Well,
but what I think maybe, I find it funny because there was something else back in the day of these older synopses. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but one that kind of also alluded to something being like figured out or that we were supposed to know or something. And I remember being kind of having that same feeling, like I'm getting deja vu for this feeling.
Yeah.
And like knowing Locke didn't do it does not solve the mystery.
Exactly.
But it's also not a mystery. We know who did it.
Yeah.
Locke.
It's not a mystery for us.
Well, because Locke said.
I know Walt did it.
Yeah, he's like, why did you burn the raft?
So what's the Disney Plus synopsis? That's what I want to know.
Ooh, good question. I will pull that up right now. All right. Disney Plus says, Saeed engages Locke to uncover the truth about Boone's death.
Okay, that's a good one.
It is just a good one-liner.
Okay, time for some stats. Great or good? 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Not as high as last week. Day 42 on the island. 17.2 million viewers. And okay, so we had 3 nicknames. 2 from Sawyer and 1 from Charlie. Charlie seems to be joining the nickname count more and more these days.
So Sawyer called the baby Huey.
And we got Chucky.
Yeah. Carl, Charlie, Chucky,
Yeah,
and then baby Huey.
And then Charlie calls the baby Turnip Head.
Yeah.
The turnip head thing becomes a thing, I think.
It does.
doesn't
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because it sounded very familiar to me.
A turnip is a very specific thing to like call a baby. Well, I was trying to think like, what does a
If the
turnip
turnip
look like?
head fits, you know?
Isn't a turnip red?
No, I think you're thinking of radish.
Radish head.
What's a turnip?
A turnip is white. I think it's like, but like, isn't it kind of like,
I'm literally Googling it right now.
Yeah.
it looks kind of dirty.
I've never had a turnip in my life.
I always thought a turnip was a red carrot.
A red carrot?
Yeah. So that's why I was like, that's weird. Maybe when he was
It's
first
purple,
born.
kind of.
Yeah, it looks like a beet.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
A
whiter
beet is all
Red.
red.
I mean, that baby was
Where's he getting the
What do you
red
use
part?
turnips for?
I don't know.
cooking, eating.
Yeah. Food. I'm partial to a pickled radish myself. I love a pickled daikon. You trying to figure out
What are you still looking up?
a
Wanted
turnip
to
recipe?
see, like, what they taste like.
Okay, Google, what does turnip taste like, and read the first response.
I don't think I've ever eaten a turnip in my
Okay,
life.
what does
Oh.
a turnip taste like?
Or-
It's a nutty and earthy sweet.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway,
All right. Okay, so trivia time. Naveen Andrews and Terry O'Quinn were both nominated for Primetime Emmy Awards for the first season of Lost in 2005, but didn't win. Who did they lose to?
2005.
They were nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series.
actor, actress, you mean?
Actor.
Naveen Andrews and Terry O'Quinn.
Yeah, they are. You know what? I don't.
You don't believe in gendered
No, I don't.
Nominations?
I don't actually believe in. To be fair, I don't. I think it should be actor or actor.
Well, this was 2005. We can't go back in time and change it.
Frick. What time? What was out then? What shows?
That's what I'm trying to.
And then supporting.
supporting, yeah.
Would we know it?
You'll know it.
Oh, I hate when you say that. Sorry, words.
Wait, I'm gonna. What? I can't remember what I was. How old was I?
Okay.
I graduated high school that year.
I graduated high school in 2003.
You.
Oh,
I'm like blanking on what was around for dramas back then. Like Sopranos. Someone from The Sopranos.
no.
Is that even on at that time?
You didn't do your sound.
Oh, sorry. Dun, 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 dun. I was wrong either way.
We need an actor.
Oh yeah, someone from The Sopranos is not really. I'm just trying to think what shows would have been on around that.
All right, you have 5 seconds.
Are you gonna? I'm gonna say someone from.
In a near sound.
I was just talking to myself.
Okay.
Hold
All
back.
right.
What? I'm gonna say Noah Wiley.
William Shatner for Boston Legal.
Oh my god, I love that show. That's I'm so mad at myself.
I never.
He won for a lot. They won lots of
Whoa.
acting then.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
It did, however, win Best Drama Series that year. Lost did. So,
Of course
Good
it
for them.
did. It's a great season.
okay. So, which deceased major pop/rock stars music video did Naveen Andrews star in?
Jesus. They're highly specific to.
We're getting later in the season. The general trivia is not quite as common.
No, I like these. I like knowing more about Naveen, but I just don't know him. You said deceased?
Yeah, they that they are
Prince.
deceased.
Prince.
Incorrect.
And you said pop star?
Pop and or rock.
Pop and or rock.
Probably more pop, but I think they also dabbled.
Walt. I can't think of anyone from 2005.
All right. No, it's not 2005. That was the Emmys.
Oh my God, this is at any point in his life. Oh no.
Like he could have been a baby. We don't know. Okay, I'm just saying. Like,
I'm gonna say who's deceased. I think obviously that's a hint. Amy Winehouse.
No. David Bowie.
I was thinking he's going to be my other one if it
And
wasn't
his music video for
Amanda.
Buddha of Suburbia. Never heard of that song before.
Not really a big Bowie fan myself.
I like several, but
I can't name
The
a
big
single
one.
song.
Under pressure. Although that's Queen and David Bowie.
David Bowie's in Queen.
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
And anything.
Mercy.
So sorry.
Kip's like, trivia is now officially done on. That's good.
All right.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's get into
Let's get ready for Teresa's Stream of Consciousness.
Also. All right, episode 21, The Greater Good. Aw, Saeed looks sad. I feel bad for Shannon. I feel like it's been a while since our last loss, you know? But this one hits differently because we didn't really know Joanna or Scott/Steve. I guess it's a Saeed episode. Interesting that it's not Shannon, considering her brother just died, but I guess what else could we explore with that relationship? What is ASIS? Oh, Nadia? So if we're talking about going to Australia, he's still clear into Nadia. I mean, the problem is we don't know how long before the crash. How long before he forgotten about Nadia and started hooking up with Shannon? Jack, I think you need to sit the hell down. You look unwell. Oh no, the funeral. Even Sawyer's upset. This one hurts. Everybody hurts. Why does Claire's baby's head look like it's made of wood for some reason? Jack looks worse for wear. Can someone get him some juice and a cookie, please? John, for God's sakes, this is the wrong time. You know, if you were going to admit to this, why wouldn't you do it at the goddamn time lock? Oh my God, Jack looks like he's going to pass out. John, I'm glad you're saying that he's a hero, but again, why didn't you say this before? And why is this all about you? Do not fight him, Jack. You're too weak. Wow. Saeed's friend has gorgeous eyes. Holy goodness. Was that a prerequisition to get on this show? My God. I bet Hopgood is super stoked about how the three of them live in this apartment because it's more realistic. Holy smokes, Saeed is so smart. Why turnip head? I feel like no one here listens to reason about resting. You all have nothing but time. There's nothing to do on that island, so please just relax. Locke, change your goddamn shirt. We don't need everyone having that kind of brutal visual all day. I'm glad that Locke feels bad, but like, where the fuck were you? You know, Shannon, surely I'm hoping you don't mean murder. Kate, that's insane. You're insane. How do I give you points and take away points for drugging someone? I mean, it's crazy, but like, necessary? Locke, just throw the fucking shirt away. Are you serious? Is it bad that I don't know what a Charlie horse is? Oh dear. Ma'am, listen to what you just said. Oh my God. Turnip head's size changes when he's fake. LOL. Harley, you're so sweet. Saeed, did you just casually taste heroin? Cool. He just knows the taste of heroin too. No big deal. How much heroin do you need to take to get high? Is he gonna get high now? You know what? I entirely forgot about that gun. Whoops. Locke, honestly, do you want to be martyred? Saeed, you're actually kind of terrifying. And Locke, you're really twisted, telling your version of the truth and then a lie. Why the hell would you hit Saeed? Maybe have a chat once you triangulate the signal instead of hitting someone. Just a thought. Oh no, is he going to ask you to do it for him? Wait, no, with him. Oh, next on siblings are dating. These two. I should probably just stop making fun. It's a sad moment. Wait, why is Walt the only one asking the relevant questions? And Michael's like, things are fine. It's a raft made of bamboo and plane parts. The plane that crashed. FYI. Oh my God, yes, the baby loves Sawyer. I love it. How long do sleeping pills last? Seems like a few hours. And it's still daylight. Did you watch him the whole time, Kate? What did you make the soup out of? Where's the spoon? Maybe not. Why would it be Locke's fault that the key is gone? What would he take the key for? Oh, Shannon, let's not. Wait, it's raining? When did that happen? Is it just raining there? Wasn't it dry on the beach 5 minutes ago? Why did I think that Saeed would be bugged or like tracked or something when he's saying these things?
Yeah, I thought so.
Hey, Saeed's Name tag says Steve. I wonder if Assam says Scott. I want to see so badly. Does that mean that Scott's the one who died? I don't know. Anyway, we've gone off. Oh my god, Assam. We should probably have left Jack in his tent. Why is he out here? And why does everyone know how to use a gun? Were these guns loaded? Or did Shannon load them herself? Oh, Locke, y'all right there, bud? Oh, wow. Jack didn't even try to help her check up on him. I mean, you're a doctor, man. You can't really pick and choose. Oh my god, this is amazing. Of course Sawyer would do it without very much fuss. I doubt he was held down to it either. Charlie just followed him and now he's reading Turnip Head magazines. You know, I'd be so scared for life, scarred for life, watching my friend shoot himself next to me. You know, Kate's not bad this episode, Hess. Just saying. Also, Locke, are you putting that gray hallucinogen paste on your head right now? Locke, I don't think that he did it to do you a solid, bruh. You know, it's like a battle of the wills here. The wise old liar versus the dude you can't lie to. The end.
Well, thank you, Teresa. Wonderful, poignant, specific, angry this week.
I think I wouldn't say angry. I'd say like probably more confused.
Just kidding.
And that is the same as every week.
I'm always confused. Like, what's a Charlie horse? Like, I don't know what that means.
Fair enough. So now we shall bring in. Oh, do you want to know the answer? They say it in the thing. He's like, it's a cramp.
Yeah, but where? Why is it called a Charlie horse?
It can be. I think it's traditionally in your back.
I always thought it was traditionally in your leg.
Oh no!
Fantastic.
You guys, I clearly don't know anything. I gotta Google this too. I'm
the best
Googling turnips and Charlie horses.
The best part is the look on her face. They said it. It's a cramp.
She always
in your back.
Why did I think it was in their back? I think it's because of Operation the
game over.
I'm getting confused.
I'm pretty sure
a Charlie horse is the common name for muscle spasm or cramp. Oh, muscle spasms can occur any muscle at the bottom, but often happen in the leg and foot.
From horses?
Oh, I always
wait. Why do you say it's from riding a horse when it's called a Charlie horse? I was thinking, what does Charlie have to do with riding horses? Oh boy!
On to our next segment.
And now it's time for Dan's hot takes.
That was great, you guys. Fantastic.
Oh, welcome, Dan.
We are just cooking with gas.
Snaps and claps.
Well, Dan, we laughed, we cried last week. So what was this week like for you?
This week was a straight 10 out of 10.
No, get the fuck out of here.
I'm just kidding. This was a doozy of an episode. And I'm very curious, not to take up too much of your time, but I'm very curious to see what the IMDb rating is for this one or how it was received.
8.2.
Oh, that seems high. This started out on a really, well, maybe... Okay, I was going to say it started off on a bad tone, but then it didn't. I was a little worried this was going to be a Shannon flashback episode at the beginning, and I was just like, I'm not ready for a Shannon flashback episode. And then I was intrigued that it was a Saeed flashback episode because I find his backstory one of the most interesting, and this added another layer to that, which I appreciated, but it did not redeem. I don't know. It just kind of seemed like a dismal episode, and there was a few things that did not make sense to me. The first one was, why are they wasting a tarp, or maybe that's the wrong word, on the burial of Boone? They have very limited supplies, and they're putting that in the ground. It serves no purpose. That body needs to decompose. I understand, the respect that even though they're on a lost island, they're trying to keep some ritual. That just made no sense.
I didn't even notice that.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, I know Sawyer has used those tarps in the past for his shelter. They're not able to produce plastics on this island. Anyways, that really stuck out to me. That's just like a really odd inclusion, especially when you're on an island. Actually, if I were them, I would be doing cremations, maybe like the India cremations with the fire. I'm forgetting the name of it, but essentially just to cremate those bodies, because especially with the wild animals on this island, we know that there's a polar bear. The least amount of, decomposition that you have around your site, the better. And it's surprising that they have not, well, I guess they did that with the plane. Maybe I'm catching myself there. So no, they did address that. They did it with the plane because of the wild boars. So I just wonder why they didn't continue that, or maybe address that storyline and maybe ask Shannon what she thought. I mean, that actually could have made a good storyline, asking, what his final wishes would have been. So
yeah, I was a little surprised they didn't burn his body as well.
The thing that I also, now going into the kind of funeral that they're having for Boone, was I really, Locke as a character is shifting, and I really don't like how he steals the thunder at Boone's funeral, because, they're on an island, they're already facing so much. And especially for Shannon, this is obviously very traumatic, but also for the rest of the castaways, this is a very important moment to be able to say goodbye to one of their own. And then Locke just steals the thunder and kind of turns it into the Locke show, which I really didn't like. And perhaps this is why now I don't like the episode. I liked the flashbacks. The on-island storyline I thought was so weak, because this is where now you have Shannon, essentially it leads into her finding out that she wants to now kill Locke. And it's not convincing. I didn't think her performance was convincing to go and kill Locke. And then by the end, when she actually shoots at him, she's just, they just make her out to be this like feeble and weak. And maybe she was playing or leaning so much into that role that her job as an actress kind of doesn't succeed. I don't know. I thought that was such an odd storyline, because it should be so easy. You should be angry if you think Locke killed your brother. And I don't know. There's just thinking back on the other moments of the episode, like I said, the Saeed flashbacks were the most interesting part, but you can't have an episode that just carries the weight through the flashbacks, because there needs to be reason for those flashbacks on the on-island plot development. And I just felt like that wasn't super strong in this one. Now, I don't like seeing Jack get upset, or anyone getting really upset, but I think he's definitely, kind of out of control at one point. But I think it's kind of justified for a while, because he knows that Locke lied. And it's similar to what I said last week, that the very least they can do to one another is tell the truth. And now that they have proof that he's not telling the truth, that is just, one of the worst things that you could do to your fellow castaway on this island. So, Locke is in my bad books. And maybe I don't quite know what they were trying to do with this episode. I mean, I chuckled. I wrote down here, Dr. Kate, because where does she get this juice? She had not water, juice, and then handsome sleeping pills. Apparently there's an abundance of sleeping pills on the island, and Claire looks like magically younger now that she's had the baby. Like, I almost did a double take, because I'm looking at her and I'm like, she looks like 5 years younger than the last episode. Like, what is going on here? So I don't know if this is maybe an episode that, not a filler, but they were needing to address certain things for upcoming episodes. So maybe after I see some of the further episodes to wrap up the season, there might be some more. Now, my last thing that I don't like about this episode is John Locke washing his bloody shirt in the spring, and no one seems to say anything about it. Like, you have a whole ocean right there, and the salt would actually probably a lot more, kill germs and things in your laundry if you're doing laundry. But to do it in the spring, this is like kind of their home. This is all they got, and this is the source of fresh water, and just to potentially contaminate it, that really irked me. The part that I really, really liked about this episode, and there's one line by Saeed, and he essentially is interrogating Locke, and I love that scene. For as much as I don't like this episode, I love that scene. Actually, that scene's probably one of my favorites so far in the season. And when he essentially calls out Locke as being adaptable, not trustworthy or truthful. And I thought that is bang on. That describes Locke better than I've ever heard him described by anybody else, and better than I could describe him myself. So once again, Saeed just being one of my favorite characters. He's so wise. He's so resourceful. And I think beyond that, he knows himself better than most of the other characters on the island know themselves. I mean, we know that Jack doesn't really know himself. He's a basket case half the time. And yet Saeed, he knows he's flawed. He knows his limits. And I really appreciate where they're going with the character of Saeed. And I now, looking back at the beginning of the season, I would have never guessed that. And so they very much surprised me with the character of Saeed. So kudos to the writers for that. I really, really like that. And finally, they can't kill John Locke because he's the only hunter, short of Kate getting the bananas, and she's always doing these things on the beach. But they can't kill Locke. He at this point, he's apparently him and Boone. Well, not that Boone was really hunting, but
so you would say this episode felt inconsistent to you?
It did. It just like thinking back to okay, well, what was the major thread? The major thread, I guess, is the Saeed backstory, but the on island Saeed story wasn't threaded together, and it just felt like there was a lot of moving parts that didn't quite come together for this episode.
So what would you give it out of 10? The big question.
This one would probably be like a 4.5.
Whoa, major dip. That's going to show on the graph.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be palpable.
Because remember, 5 is middle of the road. So
yeah,
this was kind of and this is the redeeming aspect
that concept.
Saeed redeems this episode and gets it to the middle of the road, but that is such a small part of the episode.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
Good take today.
Thank you.
Sincerely a hot take.
All right.
Well.
So, I mean, let's just talk about it. I was a little surprised that this was a Saeed episode after Boone's death. Like, of all the people to kind of be telling this story through, Saeed's an interesting choice, no?
I wasn't necessarily so maybe confused by that, but I feel I was confused by we've been getting flashbacks that, like we've been saying, help explain the on island, teach us something.
Right. And
I feel like this one should have been Saeed's first flashback because it's what led him to Australia. It was sort of the how he got on the plane flashback.
Yeah, and I mean, I think maybe it's because they wanted us to know who Nadia was, so that it was more impactful for us that he would do these things to get to her. But I think they could have still done this one first, and then when we see Nadia later, we're like, oh, that's who he's obsessed with, because you don't really see her in this episode, right?
No, and then it even sorry, Teresa.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'll just say one last thing about that, because to me it also leads to some inconsistencies in that we saw the love story blooming between Nadia and Saeed in the first flashback. And then in this flashback, he literally explains or convinces his friend to be a terrorist, a suicide bomber, so he can see Nadia. And then we find out that's right before he got on the plane. And then within a month, he's already forgotten about Nadia and is in love with someone else on the island, or maybe not even in love, but just is trying to shack up, as if he's totally forgotten about Nadia after going through all this. So it seemed very inconsistent to me as well in the character development side of things.
And I agree with Dan. I just don't know.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Teresa?
I mean, I thought about this when I was doing my stream, because I think a lot of people would think okay, it should be Shannon's backstory, but really when you think about it, what more could you really explore for Shannon right now, right? We already know she and Boone have a complicated relationship, and aside from it, kind of seems like her life was pretty she was pretty shallow, there's not much there, and Jack was just having it from Jack's would be way too much.
Well, we just had a Jack.
That also, and then Locke, no. So then I feel it does make sense to have it through Saeed's, but I do agree, as I put together why he was here, I was that's not long enough for you to be hitting on this person. You started hitting on her weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But I do think that we needed to have his earlier flashback, because that tied into more his like his torturing thing.
That's true.
So that made more sense. Like I don't think it would make sense to have this flashback back then because they don't make sense together.
Yeah.
But I do agree, like it's hard for me to believe that he was willing to have his friend go through with this. Well, not go through with, obviously he
but
like
convince him.
Yeah, but he is like willing to do anything essentially to find her.
Yeah.
And then now there's Shannon, who he doesn't really have that much chemistry with. They don't talk that much. Like it's
Yeah.
Yeah, I really am confused about the connection. Like I don't even, like, as everyone knows, we try to make notes when we're watching. I don't even really have that many notes for the flashbacks. I don't really know what it was supposed to teach us other than obviously Saeed cares about people and he's smart and he, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think the point of the flash, I think this is very similar to the Charlie flashback where we went such a long way from like the flashback was like, eh. And I think that's similar here because obviously the title is The Greater Good. And in his flashback, he, stops him from doing it or whatever. And he gets the C4, which is, for the greater good. People aren't getting blown up. And in this case, instead of going after Locke for the woman he loves, like he was going to the first time, or like in his flashback, he was going to go do this for the Nadia. He doesn't kill him. And he's like, he's our best chance at survival. So he's keeping Locke alive for the greater good of all of them. But I do think like that's a long way to go.
That makes sense though. It does. It's more than I kind of read into it. And I'm not mean that in a bad way. Like I mean that in a good way. The other thing that I was thinking about is sort of mirroring the flashback and the on-island drama was I immediately thought when, even before Shannon said, Jack, you said he was a liar when she was about to shoot Locke. You said he was a liar. Like immediately I thought this is a little bit on Jack too for his outrageous outburst, even though like it wasn't that outrageous in that he wasn't wrong to confront Locke, but just like screaming, you're a liar. You killed him in front of everybody. The consequence of that is that now Shannon is convinced that Locke killed Boone. Just like in the flashbacks, you see sort of Saeed now dealing with the consequences of going through all this, lying to his friend, convincing him to do something, and then telling his friend at the last minute that it's all been a lie, giving you a chance to escape essentially. And then his friend ends up shooting himself in the head. And it's like now Saeed has that consequence to deal with. And it's like these sort of like ramifications of your actions is an interesting sort of dichotomy on island, off island between two different characters though. So it's less about, to me, learning something from the flashbacks and more of just a connection that I found.
Yeah.
I think also it does, like it's funny because when you put it that way, it makes more sense to me. Like why, and maybe I'm just not, this is a little bit too nuanced for me, but like when you explain it like that, it makes sense to me, right? Because it's like, I think it's also showing us that there are ramifications. And when you do things kind of in the moment for those reasons, these are the consequences, right? So you think you're doing the right thing, the greater good or whatever, and in the end you're not. And I think maybe that's also part of the lesson.
Excuse me.
Either way, I find Saeed to be such a compelling character, but I never truly connect with his backstories. And I think it's just because it's like so out of the realm of like anything I could possibly understand.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, I don't know what it's like to be in the situation.
A revolutionary
Like,
guard.
don't get me wrong, I don't know what it's like to like force an old man to drive off the road when I'm a fugitive either. But I still find that there's like more of a relatable kind of element to a lot of theirs. Saeed is just like an otherworldly person to me. Like he just is like a super spy.
He seems very Jason Bourne almost.
Yes,
like
like,
he's being,
what is happening?
being like courted by CIA and Australian spy officials and like being swept up in airports and stuff. Yeah, like it does have that feeling of like he's a larger than life figure
And
not
that super hard math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although he doesn't have the super hearing.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
That he was like, it's 16 and a half years. It took me the better part of 3 minutes.
Okay.
With pen and paper.
I never even would have been able to do it with pen and paper. So you're well up on me.
Yeah, but he did it without. And he was just like.
So I think like something that's interesting to me though too is apparently when I was doing some research on this, Naveen Andrews got a letter from the Arab League, which is like almost like the UN, but specifically for Arab countries. Like it's like they're like sort of
like they're like kind of
what do you call it? Like
I don't know, like they're like not governing body, but they're like kind of like
connection.
Yeah, brings them all
together as like
under one kind of
like a regional sort of system, but like praising his portrayal and performance as like an Arab character in Hollywood. And it's with like a Muslim Arab character. So it was interesting to read that. I had to remind myself this was back in 2004, where barely after 2000, like 9/11, pretty much every single Arab character and Muslim character would have been terrorist.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you do get a level of that in this episode, which is unfortunate, but to see specifically an Arab Muslim man character sort of having a romantic relationship with a white blonde woman was almost unheard of at the time. I thought that was pretty interesting.
So they were impressed?
Yeah, they were like, wow, this is actually like impressive.
How do they feel about season 6?
I don't know. He didn't say.
But no, that's great because like I said, we don't want to get too political or anything, but this was a time in particularly in the US and I think in Britain as well. They've had a lot of history of terrorist attacks as well, where people were villainized for absolutely ridiculous reasons. And so good for them to show it as not a big deal because it shouldn't be a big deal. It's sad to me that they had to like be impressed by that because why can't Saeed and Shannon be in love other than the fact that they have no organic chemistry?
No chemistry at all.
It has nothing to do with anything beyond just the sheer weirdness to which they were thrown into. But yeah, that's cool. That's a good little fact.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it kind of reminds you of the diversity of Lost, other than like we had said last week about a lack of like LGBTQ plus representation. But otherwise, it was a very diverse show at the time.
I always find it so hard to talk about the episodes where I don't connect with the backstory as much.
And I was thinking about it too, because like this was an episode, this seems to happen after these huge, impactful episodes, right?
Like the one after Claire went
missing
or the one where Ethan died.
Like there's these massively epic lead up episodes and then it's almost like a hangover.
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it.
Because like when I was thinking about it, it's like it was a decent episode, but I mean nothing. It was like a plot developer episode. It was like, let's get some things out because now we have 4 episodes left, right? After this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This episode didn't like even plot wise when you think about it, like what really happened. Not that much. It all happened in the span of a day somehow. I don't know how sleeping pills work. I've never taken any, but I did not think that you would wake up like an hour or 2 later. Like I thought you'd be out longer.
Probably, yeah.
Because it was still daytime when he went to sleep. He woke up and it was still daytime.
When we were watching it and Kate said, here's your juice. Dan did audibly say, where do they get juice from?
I'm just imagining like there's some kind of like hole or they built something and people are just stomping on like pineapples and papayas.
I'm imagining the little cups with the foil tops that they found.
I think that it actually, honestly, if they probably did save some things like that. He probably does have juice in his like medical supplies for things like getting blood sugars up and like things like that.
I don't know. They were running out of food after like the first few days. So in my mind, like they're just, someone's out there like squeezing.
That's
like
true.
Fruit.
I actually forgot. Yeah, you can make juice.
But it was just, but she made, and then she was like, I have soup for you. I'm like, where did you warm that? Is it hot on your hands? Because it's a coconut bowl. Like
was that a coconut?
Wasn't it the outside of like a coconut?
Very raw.
Well, I don't know.
It wasn't furry.
Well, no, the furry part's on the inside.
What?
Yeah.
The furry part of a coconut is on the inside.
Yeah, well, okay,
the outside.
Coconut is like
the
size
it's
of
like green on the outside and then brown and then white.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's
I
green, white, brown,
idea.
We are learning so much. Turnips, Charlie horse, coconut.
Have you guys ever watched those things where they put like a spike in the ground and then they hit
Charlie did it last few weeks ago.
Yeah, and then they pull it off.
Didn't make the connection. Wow.
So
when people die by having coconuts fall on their head, I always imagine just those small little brown furry things with the bowling ball holes in them.
I think that is not true.
Not a lot happened in the one span of a day that we had on the show today or this week. So
well, let's talk about what does happen, which
Yeah.
there are some still, his lost is still lost.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And holy hell, does a lot happen before the like opening credits in this one. They're very it's very lengthy.
that's true actually. Yeah.
So we do start with, obviously, like you said, the hangover. Part of the hangover is that this big, terrible thing happened. So we see Shannon, we see Saeed trying to help her. And then we do see the funeral, all of which is very beautiful. Like everyone is upset by this. Sawyer looks devastated.
Walt grabs Michael's hand.
Kate's crying kind of to Son. Shannon not wanting to talk. Saeed stepping kind of up to do so. These are beautiful moments. Boone was clearly very important to everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
It was well known because he sort of inserted himself into things, whether or not like he ended up helping in the end. He was the first to like volunteer. He was the first to offer to help. He was always like willing to be there. And so I think he probably made a connection with almost everybody on that island or on that beach and at the caves.
Yeah. I feel like he was like the island's like little brother. Like
Yeah.
he's just always like around and he always wants to help and he's so eager.
I was waiting for Jack to say something about that, about how Boone was the first to offer to help do things, but then Saeed said it about Joanna. Right? That was Saeed? Yeah.
No, I was expecting Jack to say something. I was expecting Shannon wouldn't probably be able to.
Yeah.
I like that Saeed did try to step up for her.
Yeah,
and
that
that
was
did
nice.
point out that he was courageous. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
he was courageous.
Yeah.
We always talked about it even before that. Like he always tried,
Yeah.
and what more can you ask for from someone really?
Except when he took the water.
That was not a good choice.
No.
That was very misguided.
And like 100% agree with Dan. Like Locke coming and stealing the moment. Super inappropriate. When Locke just shows up and basically interrupts the funeral
And just starts going
by
off.
saying it was my fault. I did this. I did that. I mean, it's great that he's trying to take responsibility, but not the right time.
No. And like his speech kind of turns into, he was a hero. And it's like,
It's still, you know what? You know what it is? It's also just like, it's still slightly freaking off.
Yeah,
He's still spinning it.
exactly. Yeah.
And it starts out like with you're like, okay, he's going to like, first, I actually felt so many things in that scene because at first I'm like, fucking John Locke, this is not your time to absolve yourself of your sins. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when it started to kind of take like more of like a spin, because it started out very like honest. And then I was like, no, buddy, this is not the time. And then it took that kind of like sickly spinny moment of where it was like, oh, okay, so he's still going to make it sound like it's not really his fault. Like he's saying it's his fault without saying it's his fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I get mad at that because I'm like, it's really not the time for that. But then Jack, and I have to attribute this to the blood loss.
he looks ill.
He
Out of control.
At least they made him look gross because, he was out of control though, just like attacked.
Yeah. Yep. Again, it was just like very disrespectful to like what was happening. Right? Like everyone's upset. Like you're burying your first like good friend. Like
Yeah.
Joanna, we didn't know that. They didn't know that well. Jack didn't even know her name. We don't know if it was Scott or Steve who got killed by Ethan. Like this is the one that really hurts. And there's this one guy who's yelling, covered in the dead person's blood.
Yeah.
And then the guy who tried to save him, who gave him some blood, screaming back at him and then fighting. Like it was just,
Yeah. He needed to take a step back.
the whole thing was just kind of like, it's about Boone. It's not about you two. Like,
and that's
calm
the
down.
thing. They made it about themselves.
They really did.
Yeah.
And again, at least like they're both going through some trauma. So like maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Locke, I still think is spinning a narrative that I don't like. Jack, I do think is just like a raw reaction for what he went through, both physically and emotionally with losing Boone. But that just escalated so quickly as per usual. And one note I did make, I did not make a lot of, I'm trying to make less notes so I can be more like off the cuff. But one thing I did write is, it's bad when Sawyer is holding you back.
Yeah.
No kidding.
It was like one of the first ones to like go in there. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So that was my big, like, you're in the wrong.
Exactly.
If Sawyer thinks it's wrong.
He wants you to stop.
Because even Sawyer looked like really upset.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because Sawyer still appreciates, you know, the severity of the loss they've suffered and the heaviness of the moment.
Exactly.
Right. Shannon also, guys, Maggie Gray's great crier.
She's a good crier.
She's a good crier.
Yeah, she did well.
Great crier, but some of the scenes I didn't love the way that it was just kind of like, there was something off about it and I couldn't put my finger on
Crying?
it. Not the crying, but the other conversations, like when she's like, I need a favor. And I don't know if maybe it was like the makeup or the lighting, but she looked kind of like robotic. And then I was like,
I'm thinking like, I wonder, because who was the director on this one again?
David Grossman.
Like, I don't recognize that name. So I don't know if maybe
David Grossman.
it was just a director who hasn't directed a lot and kind of changed the tone just through that kind of stuff.
Just gonna see if he directed any other ones. I feel like I've read that name before. I may have not. I could have sworn I've read this name before. No, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. So wondering if that didn't do any favors, like to come off of an episode like that. It was maybe not a great decision to have a first time director come in and when there's all these raw emotions going on.
I agree. It was just, it's hard because like, obviously you're going to deal with the aftermath of like a very big event. And I think there are ways to do it without it feeling so disjointed.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
This just wasn't like as successful as some of the other like following moments.
Yeah. I mean, so then a few other side things like the baby stuff was cute.
Very cute.
Right,
How
that was
Sawyer's
nice.
comforting.
Yeah. Sawyer's voice reading the car magazine. I thought that was hilarious.
Guys, this is me. I have to add a car magazine to my...
I think so. I just like that it really shows, I feel like in the like few interactions we got with Sawyer, what I will say is I think we're seeing more of Sawyer's like instinctual personality as opposed to, because we know that he's got a lot of nicknames, he's sassy, whatever, he's racist, kind of a dick. But at the end of it all, like when they get in a fight, he's right there because he's like, this is not okay. When the baby's crying, you can tell he's like, ugh, it's crying. But like as he like walks away and Charlie just follows him, he's not really running. He does like a kind of jog.
It was funny. Yeah.
And then he's sitting down and he's reading. And like you can tell he's a little bit embarrassed when like Claire comes, but he keeps going. Like it doesn't seem like he put up a big fight to like.
No, he could have just literally been like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know who he's kind of like in that way? Rory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like when you convince them to do things that they don't want to do, but they begrudgingly do it and they actually low-key love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
And I think like you're right in a sense that it's almost like his guard is coming down and he's just being more of his authentic self in that he's not such a dick and not such an asshole right off the hop.
Yeah. Because like, I mean, some people
hon.
don't love, the sound of a crying baby, especially when you haven't had a crying baby near you for the last 40 days.
And with Sawyer, probably longer, right?
Oh, yeah.
But just in general, I thought it was cute. Everything Charlie kind of
Yeah.
like
Charlie was cute in this episode.
going around asking and when
trying.
Hurley singing.
He's like, I got it.
Yeah.
and like going to Michael and going to even Jin and being like, Jin's like, nah, like, I don't know. It's just those moments, they become fewer and farther between as the show goes on. And that's any show like this, I find.
Exactly.
But it's just nice to see those kind of moments here and there. And it's nice to see he's helping out and taking such an active role in the baby's. I don't think we know the baby's name yet, or do we?
No,
Turnip head.
So that was nice and very on brand. So like, that's the thing. Sawyer's becoming more authentic. This is pretty on brand for Locke, pretty on brand for a blood deprived Jack. You know who I don't think was very on brand character wise this episode? Shannon. I don't think Shannon would have acted like this at the death of Boone. Like don't get me wrong. I know people have emotional reactions to things and particularly after Saeed, because to me, the best parts of this episode are also Saeed and Locke's interactions, like Dan said. And like, if you're worried, so Jack thinks and I know you guys had said earlier, and I totally agree with you that what spurs her on is Jack acting that way, right? But like, so you send Saeed to suss it out, and then you don't trust his analysis, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And then you grab a gun. Like, it just seemed like a very severe reaction for someone who like didn't always even seem to love Boone.
I think it would have been more in character for her just to continue to sort of sink into herself.
Yes.
And have that sort of quiet solemnness where she just probably was feeling so many conflicting emotions, thinking about all those things where, like you say, she, for the most part, like had a very complex relationship with Boone, to put it lightly. And so very, probably wouldn't irrationally try to grab a gun and kill the man she thinks had something to do with his death.
And maybe it's another one of those, like, it's too rushed. I feel like a lot with Shannon is rushed, probably because she's a bit of a more like background main character. So maybe if this was like 2 episodes later and we had seen her sink more into herself, because you're right, it's a complicated relationship. And again, you're just really selling me on these storylines because like when you say it like that, complicated relationships do tend to end in these kind of like irrational moments, but it just seemed so irrational. Again, maybe if 2 episodes if we saw her sitting alone, not talking to anyone for the next 2 episodes, and then she had this kind of like freak out, maybe.
Yeah. And like almost Charlie. Like becoming very dark and into like, just almost dark, but she just was very sad, understandably, and quiet and didn't know what to do or say. And then it just sort of goes to turns it up to 11 out of nowhere.
I feel like there was also just like a gap in what was going on, because it kind of seemed like Kate was with him the whole time, but turns out no.
Jack?
Yeah. And then for Shannon to have gone, take the key off. Does she know where it is?
That's the thing I was going to say. How does she know where the gun thing is?
The whole time I was like, he's like, it was Shannon or whatever. And I was like, is it? Like, who told her where it was?
But I will say that led me to like, and I wrote another note, again, very few notes today, but the ones I did write are good. If I don't say so myself. Kate, again, is a good balance to Jack here. Like, she's the one being like, you don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, you have no, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with Kate essentially drugging someone.
No, that was weird.
I do think it was the only way, as Teresa said in her stream of consciousness. How do you take away and give points for that? Because like,
yes, it was the only way to basically get him to stop.
But also like, don't drug people, Kate.
Like,
but it's the least of what she's done, I guess. So, but I really liked in that because again, it felt very real. Like, not everything in this episode seemed on brand or real, but Kate chasing after him being like, you don't know what's happening.
Yes.
Like, essentially stop making these wild accusations.
Yeah, exactly.
He first is like, Locke took the guns. Like, why?
Yeah.
What was the game plan?
Exactly. Why?
Shoot everybody because he made it because Boone's dead. Like, what?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do have a question.
Okay.
Why do you think, so we talked a little bit and Dan brought it up in his hot take about this idea of the adaptability comment. I agree. That's a great comment. I know people in real life that applies to, that they pretend they're honest. No, Teresa, not you. Don't point. No. Teresa's currently pointing at herself. No, and I'm like, I don't think she's going to like this.
I just wanted to say I was adaptable. And then you went, you think they're honest. I'm like, I am honest. What do you mean?
No, but, or like that you think, but it is, or you think that like they're giving you what you want, but they're really still kind of manipulating you. Yeah. And when he said it like that, it's like, you're not trustworthy. You're adaptable. It's like, that's so spot on for some people.
Yeah, exactly.
But why do you think, knowing what we know about Locke, what the information he provided and the information he withheld, I found to be very interesting. So he's very upfront about the plane for the most part, not necessarily how they're getting there. And then he admits to Saeed that he is the one who knocked him out.
Yeah.
But he's still holding back on the hatch. Like, why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was kind of confused as to why he admitted. I mean, I guess it was to gain Saeed's trust, although I think that was not well thought out, to gain someone's trust by admitting you attacked them from behind. But to give that up and then not yet talk about the hatch, like I'm guessing it's because he thinks whatever's in that hatch is going to give him answers as to why he's here. He's here for his new life, and how did he gain his walking abilities back? Mm-hmm. He thinks by opening that hatch, it's going to lead him to answers about looking into the eye of the island. Because remember, he's seen the monster, quote unquote, and it looked at him and he saw something beautiful. So he thinks what's in there, I believe, he's going to find answers, and it's going to explain everything. And I don't think he wants anybody else part of that quite yet.
Yeah, he wants to protect that.
Yeah, he wants it for himself.
I think on top of that, for me, I think when it comes to Locke, at least the way that he's been kind of portrayed this whole time is he has an answer to everything. So he knows when it's going to rain. He can tell, Charlie's in withdrawal. He knows that Boone and Shannon are fucking weird. So he's like the wise person about it. But the one thing he has no answer to is the hatch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he can explain away why he hit Said. He's like, well, it was because you guys are stupid and that was a bad idea and people died. So, well,
Don't agree that that's why he did it, but
no, but I mean, he can explain it, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's really good at.
He has an answer.
Yeah, he has an answer for everything. So he's like, just like that raft, you guys are gonna die out there. Like this is stupid. So I think with the hatch, like, what would be the answer to that? Like, we found this, we dug it up, we tried to open it for a really long time. Then I started having visions. We went to see the plane, and then he died.
I agree. I think that's partly why he left Boone there. Like we have said before, he didn't have an answer yet as to what happened, and he needs to be able to have a plan in place to provide an answer that gives him deniability as well. It's like you said before, even with his sort of quote unquote taking responsibility, he's still spinning it in a way that allowed him to have the upper hand.
Yeah, he's always spinning things for sure.
Which is kind of crazy because, like, I feel like Locke on Island and Locke off Island are like two completely different people. Because like Locke off Island is so like Randy's picking on him for playing his games or whatever. And he's just, he's trying to invite the lady that he calls Permanent, to Australia. I think he was going to
Permanent?
leave the hotel. Wait, what?
Calls her Permanent?
Calls her to bring her to Australia.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you.
I don't know.
I also heard you say permanent.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, let me try that again.
Calls her
Permanent to take her to Australia.
Oh, probably. I think is what I wanted to say.
Permanent.
He calls her, tries to convince her to go to Australia with him, and then he was going to leave her in the hotel while he went on his walkabout
for a month.
I still never understand how that was supposed to work.
Yeah.
Or convince her to go on one, in which case, by the way, I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Those are very
I'm
difficult.
going to the Sydney Opera House.
Let me tourist around. But yeah, so it's like even the way that they think is like completely different. Like even with his like daddy was so quick. Actually, it kind of makes
Well, here's the thing though. I was going to say, like, I agree with you on one level, but then on almost like a higher level, he's still somewhat similar in that, like we've said before, he's blindly following something.
Yeah. As I was saying it, I was like, actually, he met this man who he said was his dad and then immediately fell into it. But like on Island, he's just like kind of manipulative. You don't know if you're supposed to trust him. Like, so it's very interesting to see like the two Locks.
I agree.
Yeah, for technically a Said episode, I feel like we spend more time talking about Locke. So I don't see Said in this episode as anything more than sort of like one note.
And
like
do you feel like, because the other thing is sometimes with these like flashback centric episodes, I learn more or feel differently about the character when it's over, for better or worse. Oftentimes it's for better. Sometimes it's for the worse. I don't feel any differently about Said than I did at the beginning of this.
No, not at all.
And that's why I think I compared it to that Charlie episode, because all it really did was show that he is the same person that he was.
Just for me, it was just like, okay, it explained how and why he got on the plane to LA.
But like character development wise, I was like, okay, so you are the same person you were, except now you are doing it for another woman. Not the same one that you got on the plane for.
All right. So now we're at the time where I'm very curious, because there was, I guess every character was in it, but very lightly for the most part, except for the main couple. So the character rankings, how are they going to go this week? I'm very excited to hear about Teresa's character rankings.
All right. Well,
Take it away.
I think we know who's at number 13.
Oh, right. So now number 14.
That's actually the saddest thing that's happened yet. Everyone, moment of silence for Boone. Okay. It's radio, so we can't do it for long.
I don't think it's not radio.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
I don't want to call it radio. No one's turning on the AM or FM to like.
Okay, well, you know what I mean.
You know what I mean? Like they're using their apps.
So who's in the 13th spot?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's Michael. Negative 1,395. And we have Shannon, who I had a hard time giving points and taking away points for it because she's sad. And it's hard because it was hard for me to like, I don't know, how do you give someone and take, like I had no like visceral, like, no points for you. Like, I just left her alone at number 12, negative 805. Then we have Kate at number 11, negative 105. Now our top 10, all in the positives. We have Walt with 130, Jin, 380, Saeed at number 8 with 485. And then tied at number 6, we have Sawyer and Claire with 580. We have Locke at number 5 with 695. Charlie at number 4 with 760. Jack at number 3 with 950. Hurley at number 2 with 975. And our reigning queen, Sun, 1,020.
That's a big dip for Locke. Had it coming.
He did. Like,
He had it coming.
It was just like one thing after another. I was just kind of like, okay, like that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Yeah.
He's not even really like mourning. I think that's the part that like really gets me is like to take away from someone's funeral and then go with Saeed and you're just kind of being a smart ass the whole time. It's like,
That's so true.
Because
Very
he's covering for himself. Oh. He's covering for himself.
but that's what makes it worse is like,
Yeah.
he goes to the hatch after Boone dies and he's like, why? And then that was yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that was you yesterday.
And like when he gives Shannon his bag, he like kind of like gives her this weird smirk. You're right. He's not even mourning.
No, he's just like,
so he's just being very selfish.
Yeah,
it's
so
very,
it's just like
Very
bizarre.
selfish. And it's just funny. Yeah. It's funny to see because he is so different, like you said.
Yeah.
But all right.
Now comes the time where we rate it. I'll start. I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
whoa.
Yeah,
That was my whoa.
I thought you were jamming to the music.
No, that's a
Yeah, no, I mean I didn't really get much out of it. It was a good hangover episode. We'll just stick with that but you know what? Nobody likes a hangover, so I'll just stick with my rating.
Well, you know, I always have a hard time rating these ones because I agree. There's not a lot to it, but I'd probably give it around a 6.5 as well. And I think, again, Kip has just really made my eyes see so many things in this episode this week. But again, it's that idea of these hangover episodes, and it's something that I think lost. I don't know if it's purposeful or maybe just something they need to work on, but they have these epic moments and then the like follow up feels flat, which is kind of, I guess, maybe how it would feel. But few cute moments, few sweet moments. We get some more Locke kind of mystery, but overall, it's not that great to me.
funnily enough, I'm also at a 6.5. And I'm going to explain it in the way that I know Kip loves. The last episode, we were like, oh. And then this episode, we're like, wah, wah. But like for a hot minute, we were like, oh, Sawyer. And then that was kind of it. So it's hard for me to give it any more than that.
Fair.
Who do I gotta pay to get? Oh, Sawyer as my ringtone.
You can get Sawyer as your ringtone if you sign up on our Patreon.
Well, thank you guys for sitting with us this week and talking about the greater good. Please do not forget to follow us, subscribe, download wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe we can get on your Spotify Wrapped for next year. Join our Patreon. And leave us any reviews, comments, questions at any of our social media. Let's Get Lost.pod on Instagram, Facebook. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Oh, sweet.